The scream that tore through the Montana wilderness in the summer of 1876 was not from an animal, but from a young woman whose fear had driven her deep into the forest where no soul should wander alone. Willow Anderson pressed her back against the rough bark of a pine tree, one hand clutching her swollen belly while the other covered her mouth to stifle her panicked breathing. The men who had been hunting her were still out there somewhere, their angry voices echoing through the valley below. She had been running for 2 days now, surviving on creek water and wild berries, her shoes torn to shreds and her dress hanging in tatters. At 7 months pregnant, every step was agony, but the alternative was far worse. She closed her eyes and thought of how she had ended up here, so far from the life she had known in Kentucky. Her husband, or the man she had believed to be her husband, had brought her west with promises of gold and a new beginning. Instead, she had discovered he already had a wife in Colorado, and she was nothing more than his mistress, a foolish girl who had believed every lie that fell from his silver tongue. When she confronted him about it, when she told him about the baby, his face had transformed into something monstrous. He had tried to force her into a back-alley solution to her condition, and when she refused, he had sold her to a brothel owner in Virginia City to recoup his losses. But Willow had not gone quietly. She had fought, scratched, and bitten her way free during the transfer, escaping into the wilderness with nothing but the clothes on her back. That had been 3 days ago, and she knew they were still searching for her. The brothel owner had paid good money, and men like that did not accept losses gracefully. A branch snapped somewhere to her left, and Willow's heart seized in her chest. She held her breath, listening to the forest sounds around her. Birds sang in the canopy above, and somewhere in the distance, an elk bugled its mating call. But there, beneath those natural sounds, she heard it again. Footsteps, heavy boots crushing the undergrowth. "I know you are out here, girl," a rough voice called out. "Might as well come on out. You cannot run forever, not in your condition." Willow bit down on her knuckle to keep from sobbing. She had to move, had to keep going, but her body was at its limit. The baby inside her shifted and kicked, as if sensing her distress. She whispered a silent prayer and pushed herself away from the tree, stumbling deeper into the forest. The terrain grew steeper, rockier. Her bare feet bled with every step, leaving a trail she knew they could follow, but she had no choice. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the trees, and she knew that spending another night in these woods might be the death of her. The temperature dropped dramatically after dark in these mountains, and she had no shelter, no warmth, no food. She half ran, half stumbled down a slope, grabbing at branches to keep from falling. Her vision blurred with tears and exhaustion. The voices behind her grew fainter, but she did not dare stop. Not yet. Not until she found somewhere safe to hide. That was when the ground disappeared beneath her feet. Willow tumbled down a steep embankment, her body crashing through bushes and over rocks. She tried to protect her belly with her arms as she fell, terror screaming through every nerve. The world spun in a chaos of green and brown and darkening sky, until finally, mercifully, she came to a stop at the bottom of a ravine. Pain radiated through her entire body. She lay there gasping, checking herself for injuries. Her arms and legs were scraped and bruised, her dress torn even more, but miraculously, nothing felt broken. The baby moved inside her, a reassuring flutter that brought tears of relief to her eyes. But when she tried to stand, her ankle gave out beneath her, sending her crashing back to the ground with a cry of pain. She looked down to see it was already swelling, probably sprained or worse. This was it then. This was where her story would end, at the bottom of a ravine in the Montana wilderness, alone and pregnant with nowhere left to run. The sky above her was turning purple with twilight. Willow dragged herself beneath an overhanging rock, creating a small shelter where she might survive the night. She pulled her knees up as best she could with her belly in the way, wrapped her arms around herself, and began to cry. Not loud, wrenching sobs that might give away her position, but quiet tears that traced clean lines down her dirt-smudged face. She thought of her mother back in Kentucky, who had died when Willow was 16. She thought of the farm where she had grown up, the chickens she had tended, the garden she had loved. She thought of all the choices that had led her here, and how desperately she wished she could go back and do it all differently. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and Willow placed both hands on her belly. "I am so sorry," she whispered to the child growing inside her. "I am so sorry I could not give you a better life than this." Darkness fell over the forest like a heavy blanket, and with it came the cold. Willow shivered beneath her rock, listening to the sounds of the night. Owls hooted in the distance. Something small and quick rustled through the undergrowth nearby, and far above, on the ridge she had fallen from, she heard voices calling to each other as they searched. "She could not have gotten far," one man said. "It is getting too dark to track her properly," another replied. "We will make camp and start again at first light." Relief flooded through Willow, but it was short-lived. She had bought herself a night, but come morning, they would find her trail again. They would find where she had fallen, and they would find her, unless she could move. Unless she could somehow, despite her injured ankle and exhausted body, find the strength to keep going. But as she sat there in the darkness, cold and frightened and more alone than she had ever been in her life, she felt that strength abandoning her. Her eyelids grew heavy despite her fear. Her body demanded rest even as her mind screamed that she could not afford to sleep. Eventually, exhaustion won. She did not know how long she slept, only that something woke her. A sound, different from the others, not threatening but close, very close. Willow's eyes snapped open to find the forest still dark, though dawn could not be far off. The stars were beginning to fade overhead. And there, standing at the entrance to her small shelter, was the silhouette of a man. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Terror had stolen her voice. The man did not move closer. He stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, a hat on his head and what looked like a rifle in his hands. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he spoke, and his voice was nothing like the rough, cruel tones of the men who had been hunting her. "Easy now," he said softly, the way one might speak to a spooked horse. "I am not going to hurt you." Willow found her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "Please. Please just let me go." The man crouched down slowly, making himself less threatening. In the pre-dawn light, she could not make out his features, only that he seemed younger than she had first thought, his movements fluid and careful. "You are hurt," he observed, his tone matter-of-fact but not unkind, "and you have been running from something or someone." Willow said nothing. What could she say? The truth sounded insane, and lies required more energy than she possessed. "I have a ranch not far from here," the man continued. "About 2 miles west. You look like you could use some food, some water, and a safe place to rest. Will you let me help you?" "Why?" The word came out harsher than she intended, but she could not help it. Every man she had trusted had betrayed her. Why should this stranger be any different? She saw rather than heard him sigh. "Because you are injured and pregnant and hiding in a ravine at dawn. Because I have been tracking you since yesterday afternoon when I saw those men searching the woods on my property. Because you look like you need help and I happen to be in a position to offer it. You saw them." Willow's heart began to race again. "Are they still out there?" "They made camp about a mile north of here. They will be breaking it soon, now that the sun is rising." which means we should probably get moving if you want to stay hidden." Willow tried to stand, forgetting about her ankle. She cried out as pain shot through her leg, and suddenly the man was there, catching her before she could fall. "Your ankle," he said, his hands gentle but firm as he steadied her. "When did that happen? Last night, when I fell." Up close, she could finally see his face as the dawn light grew stronger. He was young, maybe 25 or 26, with dark hair that fell to his collar and eyes that held a surprising warmth. His face was weathered in the way of men who spent their lives outdoors, but there was no cruelty in it, no hardness. Just concern. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Ride what?" He gestured up the slope behind him. "My horse. She is gentle, I promise, but we need to move and you cannot walk on that ankle." Every instinct Willow possessed screamed at her to refuse, to stay hidden, to not trust this stranger no matter how kind he seemed. But those same instincts had failed her before, had led her into the arms of a man who had used and discarded her like trash. And right now, she was out of options. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I can ride." The man nodded once, then without warning, he swept her up into his arms. Willow gasped, instinctively clutching at his shoulders. "Easier than making you climb with that ankle," he explained, already moving toward the slope. His strength was evident in how easily he carried her, navigating the difficult terrain without seeming to struggle with her weight. At the top of the ravine, a beautiful bay mare stood waiting, her reins tied loosely to a tree. She nickered softly as they approached. "This is Copper," the man said, setting Willow gently on her feet while keeping one arm around her waist to support her. "Like I said, she is gentle. She will not throw you." He untied the mare and led her over, then helped Willow mount. Her ankle throbbed with pain even with his assistance, but she bit her lip and stayed silent. Once she was settled in the saddle, he looked up at her. "I am going to lead her on foot. It is not far, but the terrain is rough. Hold on to the saddle horn and try to keep your weight centered." "Can you do that?" Willow nodded, not trusting her voice. She was aware of how she must look, filthy and bedraggled, her dress in tatters, her hair a tangled mess. But the man did not comment on her appearance. He simply took Copper's reins and began walking, leading them west through the forest. They moved in silence for a long time. The sun rose higher, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Birds began their morning songs. Under different circumstances, it might have been beautiful. But Willow could not appreciate the scenery. She kept looking over her shoulder, expecting to see those men emerging from the trees at any moment. "They cannot see us from here," the man said, not looking back at her. "And even if they could, you are on my land now, they would have to answer to me." "You do not know what they are capable of," Willow said, her voice tight with fear. "Maybe not, but I know what I am capable of." He said it simply, without bravado or threat, just a statement of fact. Something in his tone made Willow believe him. "What is your name?" she asked suddenly. He glanced back at her, a small smile touching his lips. Nathan Stone, and yours?" Willow Anderson." "Well, Miss Anderson, welcome to Stone Ranch, such as it is." They emerged from the trees into a clearing, and Willow saw his home for the first time. It was not large, just a sturdy log cabin with a barn and a few outbuildings, but it looked well maintained and cared for. Smoke rose from the chimney, and chickens scratched in a pen near the barn. It was humble, but it was more welcoming than anything Willow had seen in months. Nathan led Copper up to the cabin and tied her to a post, then reached up to help Willow down. She slid into his arms, and for a moment they stood there, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body, could smell the scent of wood smoke and leather that clung to him. "You are safe here," he said quietly, looking directly into her eyes. "I give you my word. Whatever you are running from, whoever is hunting you, They will not get to you while you are under my protection." Tears welled up in Willow's eyes before she could stop them. "You do not even know me. Why would you promise something like that?" Nathan's expression grew serious. "Because I know what it is like to be alone and scared. Because I believe everyone deserves a chance at safety, especially someone in your condition. And because—" He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Because the moment I saw you down in that ravine, something in me said this was important, that you were important. I do not know how else to explain it." He helped her to the cabin door and opened it, revealing a simple but clean interior. There was a large stone fireplace with a fire already burning, a wooden table and chairs, a kitchen area with a cast iron stove, and a bed in the far corner covered with what looked like a handmade quilt. "I know it is not much," Nathan said, sounding almost apologetic. "I have been living alone here for 3 years, so I have not had much need for comfort beyond the basics. But the bed is clean, and I have food and water. You can rest here as long as you need." Willow stepped inside, her injured ankle making her movement awkward. She looked around the cabin, taking in every detail. It was sparse, yes, but there was an honesty to it that appealed to her. No false pretenses, no attempts to be something it was not. "Why do you live alone?" she asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. "I am sorry." "That is none of my business." Nathan shrugged, closing the door behind them. "No, it is a fair question. The truth is, I came out here after the war, fought for the Union, saw things I would rather forget. When I got home to Illinois, I found my family had moved on. My sweetheart had married someone else, and I did not fit into that life anymore. So I came west, bought this land from a trapper who wanted to move further into the mountains, and I have been here ever since. Copper and the chickens are about the only company I keep most days." He guided her to the bed and helped her sit. "Let me take a look at that ankle." Willow hesitated, then nodded. Nathan knelt in front of her and carefully examined her swollen ankle, his touch gentle and professional. "It is badly sprained, but I do not think it is broken. I will wrap it for you, and you will need to stay off it for a few days at least." "I cannot stay here for days," Willow protested. Those men are not going to find you," Nathan said firmly. "And even if they do, they will have to go through me first. Now, let me get you some proper clothes and food. You look like you have not eaten in days." He was right about that. Willow's stomach cramped at the mere mention of food. She watched as Nathan moved around the cabin with practiced efficiency, pulling out a clean shirt and pair of trousers from a trunk. "These will be too big on you, but they are better than what you are wearing now," he said, handing them to her. "I will step outside while you change. There is a basin of water and a cloth over there if you want to wash up first." True to his word, he left the cabin, closing the door behind him. Willow sat there for a moment, overwhelmed by the sudden change in her circumstances. Just hours ago, she had been certain she was going to die in those woods. Now she was sitting in a warm cabin, being offered clean clothes and safety by a stranger who asked nothing in return. It felt too good to be true. And in Willow's experience, things that seemed too good to be true usually were, but what choice did she have? Her ankle was injured, she was exhausted and starving, and she was 7 months pregnant. She could not survive on her own, not anymore. She would have to trust Nathan Stone, at least for now. She struggled out of her torn dress, wincing at the pain in her ankle and the various bruises covering her body. The basin of water was cold but clean, and she did her best to wash the dirt and blood from her skin. The shirt Nathan had given her hung on her like a tent, and the trousers would not button over her belly, but she managed to tie them with a piece of rope she found. It was far from elegant, but it was clean and warm, and that was more than enough. "Are you decent?" Nathan's voice came from outside. "Yes," He entered carrying a plate of food and a cup of water. The plate held cornbread, beans, and what looked like venison. Willow's mouth watered at the sight. "It is not fancy," Nathan said, setting it down on the table. "But it is filling. Eat slowly, though. Your stomach is probably not used to a full meal." Willow did not need to be told twice. She limped over to the table and sat down, then began eating. The food was simple but delicious, and she had to force herself not to shovel it into her mouth like an animal. Nathan watched her for a moment, then moved to tend the fire. "When you are finished eating, you should sleep," he said. "You look exhausted." "Where will you sleep?" Willow asked between bites. "I have a bedroll in the barn. I will be fine." "I cannot take your bed. This is your home." Nathan turned to look at her, his expression firm but kind. "You are pregnant and injured. You need the bed more than I do." No arguments. Willow wanted to protest, but the truth was, she was barely keeping her eyes open. The warmth of the cabin, the food in her stomach, and the softness of the chair beneath her were all conspiring to drag her into sleep. She finished eating and, with Nathan's help, made her way back to the bed. The moment she lay down on the mattress, she felt her body relax in ways it had not in days. The quilt was soft and smelled faintly of pine. "Rest," Nathan said softly. "I will be right outside if you need anything. You are safe now, Willow, I promise." As sleep pulled her under, Willow heard his words echo in her mind. "You are safe now." She wanted desperately to believe them. And for the first time in a long time, she thought maybe, just maybe, she could. When Willow woke, the sun was high in the sky and streaming through the cabin windows. She lay there for a moment, disoriented, her hand automatically moving to her belly. The baby shifted beneath her palm, a reassuring movement that helped her remember where she was and how she had gotten here, Nathan's cabin. Nathan Stone, the rancher who had found her in the woods and brought her to safety. She sat up slowly, testing her ankle. It was still swollen and painful, but the rest had helped. She could see that Nathan had left another plate of food on the table, covered with a cloth to keep it warm. There was also a pitcher of water and a clean cup. The cabin was empty, but through the window she could see Nathan outside, chopping wood near the barn. His shirt was off despite the morning chill, and Willow could not help but notice the strength in his shoulders and arms as he worked. He moved with an easy rhythm, the axe rising and falling with practiced precision. She looked away, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. She had no business noticing such things about him, not when she was pregnant with another man's child, not when she was in such dire circumstances. Willow forced herself to stand and limp over to the table. The food was still warm, eggs and more cornbread with fresh butter. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, and watched Nathan through the window as he worked. He was kind. That much was clear. But kindness could be deceptive, could hide darker intentions. Willow had learned that lesson the hard way. Still, there was something different about Nathan Stone. The way he had helped her without expecting anything in return, the way he had given up his own bed for her comfort, the gentleness in his touch when he examined her ankle. It reminded her of her father before he died. The quiet strength, the simple decency. It had been so long since she had been around someone like that, she had almost forgotten men like that existed. The cabin door opened and Nathan walked in, pulling his shirt back on. He smiled when he saw she was awake. "Good afternoon," he said. "You slept for almost 15 hours. I checked on you a few times to make sure you were all right." "I am sorry," Willow said automatically. "I did not mean to. Do not apologize for resting when you needed it." Nathan moved to the stove and poured himself a cup of coffee from a pot that was warming there. "How is your ankle?" "Better. Still sore, but better." "Good. I will check it again later, make sure the swelling is going down." He leaned against the wall, sipping his coffee and studying her with those warm, brown eyes. "Do you want to tell me what happened? Why you were running?" Willow's appetite fled. She set down her fork and stared at her plate. "It is a long story, and not a particularly pleasant one. I have time, and maybe talking about it will help." She looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of judgment or ulterior motive. She found nothing but genuine concern. So she told him everything about the man who had courted her in Kentucky with pretty words and prettier promises, about how he had swept her off her feet when she was just 18 and grieving her mother's death, about the journey west, the discovery that he was already married, the pregnancy, about his attempt to force her into getting rid of the baby, and his decision to sell her to a brothel when she refused. Nathan's expression grew darker as she spoke, his jaw clenching, but he said nothing. He just listened. "I know it sounds foolish," Willow said when she finished, tears streaming down her face. "I know I should have seen through him, should have asked more questions, should have been smarter. But I was alone and scared, and he made me feel safe. And now look at me. Pregnant with a liar's child, running for my life, dependent on the charity of strangers." She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. All the fear and anger and shame she had been holding back came pouring out. She heard Nathan set down his coffee cup, heard his footsteps crossing the floor. Then she felt his hand on her shoulder, warm and steady. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firm but kind. "None of this is your fault. That man lied to you, manipulated you, and then tried to sell you like property. The shame belongs to him, not you. Do you understand?" Willow could not speak. She just shook her head, the tears continuing to fall. Nathan crouched down beside her chair so he could look her in the eyes. "Willow, look at me, please." Reluctantly, she raised her head. His face was close to hers, his expression intense. "You are not foolish for trusting someone who claimed to love you," he said. "You are not weak for finding yourself in a bad situation. You are strong for escaping, for protecting your child, for surviving alone in those woods for 3 days. Do you hear me? You are strong." "I do not feel strong," Willow whispered. "I feel broken. Broken things can be mended." Nathan's hand moved from her shoulder to gently brush a tear from her cheek. "And sometimes they come out stronger than before." Something in his touch, in his words, made Willow believe him. She found herself leaning into his hand, craving the comfort and warmth it offered. Nathan's breath caught slightly, but he did not pull away. For a long moment they stayed like that, frozen in time. Then Nathan seemed to catch himself. He stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "I should let you finish eating," he said, his voice slightly rough. "And I need to check the fence line in the north pasture. Will you be all right here alone for a few hours?" Willow nodded, not trusting her voice. She felt the loss of his presence like a physical thing, which was absurd. She barely knew this man. "There is a rifle by the door," Nathan continued, moving toward it. "It is loaded. If anyone comes here that is not me, you shoot first and ask questions later. Understand? You think they will find me? No, but I believe in being prepared." He grabbed his hat from a peg by the door. "I will be back before dark. Rest, eat, and do not put any weight on that ankle unless you absolutely have to." Then he was gone, leaving Willow alone in the cabin with her thoughts and the lingering warmth where his hand had touched her face. The next few days fell into a routine. Nathan would wake early and do his chores around the ranch, checking on Willow periodically to make sure she had food and water. Willow would rest, letting her ankle heal and try to make herself useful in small ways. She could not do much with her injury, but she mended Nathan's clothes, organized his kitchen, and prepared meals when she was able. They talked during these days, long conversations that stretched from morning until night. Nathan told her about his childhood in Illinois, about his family's farm, about the war and what he had seen there. Willow told him about growing up in Kentucky, about her parents, about her love of reading and her dream of one day having a home full of books. "I had to leave everything behind," she said one evening as they sat by the fire. Her ankle was much improved now, the swelling nearly gone. All my mother's things, her books, her jewelry, everything that connected me to her. He took it all when he abandoned me. Nathan was quiet for a moment, staring into the flames. "I am sorry. I know what it is like to lose those connections to people you loved. Do you ever regret it, coming out here living alone?" He considered the question. "Sometimes, but mostly no. Out here I can be myself. I do not have to pretend to be someone I am not, do not have to pretend the war did not change me. The solitude can be lonely, but it is honest. Does that make sense?" "Yes," Willow said softly. "It makes perfect sense." Their eyes met across the firelight, and Willow felt something shift between them. An understanding, a connection that went deeper than their circumstances. She saw in Nathan a kindred spirit, someone who had been broken by life and was trying to piece themselves back together in their own way. "Willow," Nathan said, his voice low, "I need to ask you something." "What? What are you going to do when your ankle heals? I mean, you cannot stay here forever." He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "Not that I want you to leave, I just mean. You must have thought about what comes next." Willow looked down at her hands, folded over her swollen belly. "Honestly, I have not let myself think that far ahead. I have been so focused on just surviving each day that I have not considered what kind of future is even possible for me now. You could go to one of the towns, Virginia City maybe, or Helena, find work, build a life. Who is going to hire a pregnant woman with no references and no husband?" Willow laughed bitterly. "The only work available to someone like me is the kind I was running from. Then stay." The words came out rushed, as if Nathan had not meant to say them. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Stay here. I have room, and God knows I could use help around the ranch. You could earn your keep, have a safe place to raise your child." Willow's heart began to race. "Nathan, I cannot ask you to do that. You do not owe me anything." "I know I do not owe you anything." He turned to face her, his expression intense. "But these past few days, having you here, it has made me realize how much I have been missing. Not just help with the ranch, but conversation, companionship, someone to share meals with. Having you here feels right, Willow. Like maybe we were both supposed to find each other." "I am pregnant with another man's child," Willow said, her voice breaking. "I come with nothing but problems and baggage. Why would you want that in your life?" Nathan crossed the room and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. "Because that child deserves a chance at a good life, and so do you. Because I have spent 3 years alone on this ranch, and in less than a week, you have made it feel more like a home than it ever has before. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for." Tears spilled down Willow's cheeks. "You barely know me." "Then stay and let me know you better. Stay and let me prove that not all men are like the one who hurt you. Stay because I think you want to and because I am asking you to." His hands tightened around hers. "You are safe with me forever, Willow, I swear it. However long forever lasts, whatever it brings, you will be safe here." Willow looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He meant every word. This man who had found her broken and frightened in the woods, who had asked nothing of her but to let him help, was offering her something she had thought was lost forever, a home. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will stay." Nathan's face broke into a smile, genuine and bright, and Willow felt something warm bloom in her chest. Hope. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt actual hope. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest Willow could remember. Her ankle healed completely, and she threw herself into helping Nathan with the ranch. She tended the chickens, gathered eggs, worked in the garden Nathan had planted but never had time to properly maintain. She cooked meals that were far better than the simple fare Nathan had been surviving on, using wild herbs she gathered from around the property and vegetables from the garden. Nathan, in turn, began teaching her the skills she would need to survive out here. He showed her how to shoot the rifle, how to read the weather, how to recognize the signs of predators near the livestock. He was patient and kind, never making her feel foolish for not knowing something. They fell into an easy companionship that felt natural, comfortable. But underneath that comfort, Willow could not deny the growing feelings she had for Nathan. The way her heart sped up when he smiled at her, the warmth that spread through her when his hand brushed hers accidentally, the disappointment she felt each night when he said good night and headed to the barn to sleep. She tried to tell herself it was just gratitude, just the result of being in close quarters with a kind man after the trauma she had endured. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. One evening in late August, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the mountains, Nathan turned to her with a serious expression. "There is something I need to tell you," he said. Willow's stomach clenched. Here it comes, she thought. He has realized what a burden I am, and he is going to ask me to leave. I have been doing some thinking, Nathan continued, about your situation and about how to keep you safe long term. Nathan, if you want me to leave. No, he said it firmly, reaching over to take her hand. No, that is not what I am saying at all. The opposite, actually. I want you to stay, but I want to make sure you are protected, legally protected. I do not understand. Nathan took a deep breath. Those men who were hunting you, the brothel owner who bought you from that bastard who brought you out here, they could still be looking for you. And right now, you have no legal protection. But if you were married, if you had a husband who could claim you as his own, they would have no claim on you anymore. Willow's breath caught. What are you saying? I am saying I think we should get married. Nathan rushed on before she could respond. It would be a marriage of convenience, of course, to protect you and the baby. I would not expect anything from you that you were not willing to give. You would have your own space, your own life, but you would have the protection of my name and my home. The baby would be legitimate, would have a future. Willow pulled her hand from his, standing and moving to the porch railing. Her mind was spinning. Marriage. Nathan was proposing marriage. For her protection, he said. A marriage of convenience. The problem was, Willow did not want a marriage of convenience with Nathan. Somewhere over these past weeks, she had fallen in love with him. Truly, deeply in love. The kind of love she had thought she felt for the man who had betrayed her, but deeper, truer, built on respect and shared experiences rather than pretty lies. You do not have to do that, she said quietly. You do not have to marry me out of some sense of duty. It is not just duty. Nathan stood and moved behind her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. Willow, these weeks with you have been the happiest I have had in years. The thought of you leaving, of you and the baby being out there unprotected, it tears me apart. I want you to stay. I want to help raise this child. I want to build a life with you. As a convenience, Willow said, unable to keep the hurt from her voice. No. God, no. Nathan's hands came to rest on her shoulders, gentle but firm. I am making a mess of this. What I am trying to say is that I have feelings for you, Willow. Real feelings. I think I started falling for you that first morning when I saw you in that ravine, so scared but so brave. And every day since then, those feelings have only grown stronger. Willow turned to face him, her heart pounding. You have feelings for me. Yes, deep feelings. The kind of feelings that make me want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. The kind that make me want to be there when your baby is born, to help you raise that child as if it were my own. The kind that make me want to spend the rest of my life making you smile. But the baby, I do not care that it is not mine biologically, Nathan said fiercely. That child is a part of you, which means I already love it. When I imagine the future now, I see you and a baby in this cabin. I see us building a family together, if you will have me. Willow felt tears streaming down her face, but for once they were happy tears. I love you, she whispered. I did not want to, did not think I could after everything that happened, but I do. I love you, Nathan Stone. Nathan's face lit up with joy. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away her tears. Is that a yes, then? Will you marry me? Yes. Not for convenience, not for protection, but because I want to spend my life with you. Yes. Nathan leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but Willow did not want to pull away. She wanted this, wanted him. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle at first, tentative, but quickly deepened into something more passionate. Willow felt like she was finally coming home after a long, difficult journey. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. I will make you happy, Willow. I swear it. I will spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes. I know, Willow said, and she meant it. Whatever doubts she had harbored about men, about trust, about love, they melted away in the warmth of Nathan's embrace. This was real. This was right. They were married a week later in Shoshone City, Montana, the nearest town with a proper preacher. It was a simple ceremony with only the preacher and his wife as witnesses, but to Willow, it was perfect. She wore a simple blue dress that the preacher's wife had loaned her, altered to fit over her now very swollen belly. Nathan wore his best shirt and had actually trimmed his hair for the occasion. When the preacher pronounced them man and wife and told Nathan he could kiss his bride, Willow felt a joy so complete it took her breath away. This was her husband. This good, kind man was her husband, and she was his wife. The ride back to the ranch was quiet but comfortable. Nathan drove the wagon with one arm around Willow's shoulders, keeping her close as the evening air grew cool. The baby kicked actively, as if celebrating along with them. I can feel that, Nathan said with wonder, his hand moving to Willow's belly. Is that normal, for the baby to move that much? Willow laughed. Yes, perfectly normal. The baby has been very active lately. I think it will be born soon. How soon? Maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It is hard to say for certain. Nathan's expression grew serious. We should get everything ready then. Make sure we have supplies, that everything is prepared. Have you delivered a baby before? I have helped my mother deliver a few back in Kentucky, but I was very young. Willow felt a flutter of anxiety. What about you? Have you ever delivered a foal once or twice, but that is hardly the same thing? Nathan pulled her closer. We will figure it out together, and if we need help, I can ride to town and fetch the doctor. The nearest doctor is more than 2 hours away. There may not be time. Then we will manage on our own. Nathan kissed the top of her head. You are strong, Willow, stronger than you know, and I will be right there with you every step of the way. That night, for the first time, Willow did not sleep alone in the cabin bed while Nathan went to the barn. They lay together as husband and wife, though Nathan was careful and gentle, mindful of her condition. He held her close, his hand resting protectively over her belly, and Willow felt safer and more loved than she ever had in her life. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. I love you too, Nathan replied, his voice rough with emotion. More than I ever thought possible. The weeks that followed were busy with preparations. Nathan threw himself into getting ready for the baby's arrival, building a cradle from pine wood, and making sure the cabin was as comfortable and secure as possible. Willow sewed tiny clothes from fabric Nathan brought back from town, her heart full as she imagined holding her child in her arms. But as September rolled into October and Willow grew larger and more uncomfortable, they both began to feel the weight of anticipation. Any day now, the baby would come. Any day, their lives would change forever. It happened on a crisp October morning when the leaves on the aspens had turned gold and the air smelled of coming winter. Willow woke before dawn with a pain in her back, low and persistent. At first she thought she had just slept wrong, but as the morning progressed, the pains grew stronger and more regular. "Nathan," she said as he came in from the morning chores, "I think it is time." She saw the color drain from his face, saw the flash of panic in his eyes. But then he took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. "All right. What do you need me to do?" "Water," Willow said, gripping the table as another contraction hit. "We will need lots of hot water and clean cloths, and you should probably bring the cradle in from the barn." Nathan moved into action, his hands steady despite his obvious nerves. He filled the large pot with water and set it on the stove to heat, then rushed to gather clean linens and blankets. Willow walked around the cabin, trying to ease the pain in her back, breathing through each contraction as they grew closer together. Hours passed. The sun rose higher in the sky, then began its descent. The contractions grew stronger, more intense. Nathan stayed by Willow's side through all of it, holding her hand, supporting her weight when she needed it, wiping her brow with a cool cloth. "You are doing so well," he murmured, his voice steady and encouraging even though Willow could see the worry in his eyes. "So strong. I am so proud of you." As night fell and the contractions reached their peak, Willow cried out in pain and fear. This was harder than she had expected, more painful, more overwhelming. She felt like she was being torn apart. "I cannot do this," she gasped between contractions. "Nathan, I cannot." "Yes, you can." Nathan gripped her hands tightly, forcing her to look at him. "Look at me, Willow, look at me. You can do this. You are the strongest person I know, and I am right here. I am not going anywhere." Willow held onto his gaze like a lifeline, drawing strength from his presence. When the urge to push came, Nathan helped her into position, his hands gentle but confident. He had studied the medical book he had bought in town, had prepared as best he could for this moment. "That is it," he encouraged as Willow bore down. "That is it. You are doing it. I can see the baby's head. One more push, love. One more." With a final, tremendous effort, Willow pushed with everything she had. She felt the baby slip free, heard its first cry split the air, and then collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but overwhelmed with relief. "It is a boy," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Willow, we have a son." Willow watched through tear-filled eyes as Nathan carefully cleaned the baby, his hands remarkably steady for someone who had never done this before. He wrapped the infant in a clean blanket, then gently placed him in Willow's arms. Willow looked down at her son for the first time. He was small and red and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and tiny, perfect fingers. He had stopped crying and was looking up at her with unfocused eyes, and Willow felt her heart expand with a love so fierce it was almost painful. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Hello, my beautiful boy." Nathan sat on the edge of the bed beside them, one arm around Willow's shoulders, looking down at the baby with wonder. "He is perfect," he said softly. "Absolutely perfect." "What should we name him?" Willow asked, unable to take her eyes off her son. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said, "What about James? After my father, he was a good man, would have loved to meet his grandson." "James," Willow repeated, testing the name. "James Stone, I like it. James it is." They sat together as the night deepened around them, the three of them a family now, bound not by blood in Nathan's case, but by something stronger: choice. Nathan had chosen to love this child, had chosen to be his father in every way that mattered. And as Willow watched him gently touch James's tiny hand, watched the baby's fingers curl around Nathan's finger, she knew that this child would grow up knowing nothing but love. The first few weeks with James were exhausting but joyful. The baby was healthy and strong, with a good appetite and healthy lungs that he was not afraid to use. Willow had never been so tired in her life, but she had also never been so happy. Nathan was an involved and loving father from the start. He would wake in the night when James cried, would walk the floor with him to soothe him back to sleep so Willow could rest. He built a changing table and installed extra shelves to hold all the baby's things. He sang to James in a low, rumbling voice that never failed to quiet the baby's fussing. "You are a natural at this," Willow said one evening, watching as Nathan rocked James by the fire. "Am I?" Nathan looked up with a smile. "Most of the time I feel like I have no idea what I am doing." "That is how all new parents feel, I think, but you are good with him. He loves you already." Nathan looked down at the baby in his arms, his expression soft. "I love him too, more than I ever thought possible. Sometimes I look at him and I am just overwhelmed by it." As winter set in, the little family settled into a comfortable routine. The ranch work slowed with the cold weather, giving Nathan more time to spend with Willow and James. They passed the long winter evenings by the fire, reading aloud to each other from the few books Nathan owned, or simply talking while James slept in his cradle. It was during one of these quiet evenings that Willow finally told Nathan about something that had been weighing on her mind. "I have been thinking," she said, setting down her mending, "about my past, about that man." Nathan looked up from the boot he was repairing, his expression carefully neutral. "What about him?" I realized something. I spent so long being angry at him, hating him for what he did to me. But if he had not betrayed me, I never would have ended up here. I never would have met you. James would not have grown up with you as his father. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I am not saying I forgive him for what he did, but I am grateful for where it led me." Nathan set down the boot and moved to sit beside her on the bed. "You know James is my son in every way that matters, right? I do not care that I did not father him. He is mine and I am his. That will never change. I know, and that is why I love you so much." Willow leaned her head on his shoulder. "You did not have to take us in. You did not have to love us. But you did, and you changed everything." "You changed everything for me too," Nathan said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Before you, I was just existing out here, going through the motions day after day, but you brought life back into this place. You brought love and laughter and purpose. You gave me a family." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire dance in the hearth while James slept peacefully nearby. "Nathan," Willow said eventually, "yes, I want more children. Someday, when James is older, I want to fill this cabin with babies." Nathan laughed, a warm, happy sound. "I think we might need to build a bigger cabin then." "So you are agreeable to the idea, Willow. I am agreeable to anything that involves building a life with you. If you want a dozen children, we will find a way to make it work." Willow smiled, feeling a contentment she had never known before. This was home. This was family. This was love, real and true and lasting. Spring came, bringing with it new life to the ranch. The snow melted from the mountains, filling the streams with rushing water. Wildflowers bloomed in the meadows. And James, now 6 months old, began to discover the world around him with wide-eyed wonder. Nathan built a small pen outside where James could sit and play safely while Willow worked in the garden. The baby would babble and laugh at the chickens, reaching out with chubby hands to try to catch them as they pecked around his pen. "He has your laugh," Nathan observed one afternoon, watching from where he was mending a fence. "That same joyful sound." "And he has your stubbornness," Willow replied with a grin. "Watch this." She tried to take a wooden spoon away from James, and the baby clutched it tighter, his little face set in determination. "See, just like his father when someone tries to help him with the heavy lifting." "I do not know what you are talking about," Nathan said with mock indignation. "I am perfectly reasonable. You tried to carry 3 bags of feed at once last week and nearly threw out your back." "That is different." Willow laughed, and Nathan could not help but join in. These moments, these simple, everyday moments of family life, were what he treasured most. The sound of Willow's laughter, the sight of James playing in the sunshine, the knowledge that they were his and he was theirs. As summer arrived, bringing long, warm days perfect for working the ranch, Nathan began teaching Willow more advanced skills. She learned to ride copper with confidence, learned to help with the cattle Nathan had purchased in the spring, learned to handle a rope and a branding iron. "You are a natural rancher," Nathan said with pride after Willow successfully roped a calf on her 3rd try. "I had a good teacher," she replied, coiling the rope with practiced ease. They worked side by side, equal partners in building their life. Nathan never treated Willow as less capable because she was a woman, and Willow appreciated that more than she could say. She had grown strong over the past year, both physically and mentally. The frightened, broken girl who had hidden in the woods was gone, replaced by a confident woman who knew her own worth. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch watching James take his first unsteady steps between them, Nathan cleared his throat. "There is something I want to talk to you about," he said. Willow looked up, hearing the serious tone in his voice. "What is it?" "I have been thinking about expanding the ranch, maybe buying some of the land to the south, increasing our herd. It would mean more work, but also more security for our family, for James and any other children we might have." "That sounds wonderful," Willow said, "but can we afford it?" "I have some money saved from before the war. My grandfather left me a small inheritance that I have barely touched. I have been waiting for the right reason to use it, and I think building a future for our family is the right reason." Willow reached over and took his hand. "Then let us do it. Let us build something lasting here." Over the next few months, Nathan began the process of purchasing the adjacent land and increasing their cattle herd. It was hard work, sometimes back-breaking, but they did it together. Willow proved to be an excellent horsewoman and a shrewd judge of cattle. Together, they began to build something substantial, a real ranch that could support them and their children for generations. As autumn painted the mountains in shades of orange and gold, Willow realized she was pregnant again. She told Nathan one evening after they had put James to bed. He was walking well now, getting into everything, keeping them both on their toes. "Are you sure?" Nathan asked, his eyes wide. "Fairly certain. I have been feeling exactly like I did with James." Nathan let out a whoop of joy and swept Willow into his arms, spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We are having another baby. Nathan, put me down. You are going to wake James." He set her down gently but kept his arms around her, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you so much. Do you know that? So very much. I love you too. More than words can say." This pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Willow was not running for her life or living in fear. She was healthy and well-fed with a devoted husband by her side. Nathan was attentive to the point of being overprotective, constantly worrying about her doing too much work. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," Willow told him one afternoon when he tried to stop her from gathering eggs. "I know, but I worry. Last time was so hard on you." "Last time I had been running through the woods for days and sleeping in a ravine." This time I have a warm bed, plenty of food, and a husband who loves me. It is completely different." Nathan relented, but Willow noticed he still watched her carefully whenever she did any strenuous work. She found it endearing rather than annoying. After years of having no one to care for her, having someone worry about her well-being felt like a luxury. The second baby arrived in early May of 1878, another boy they named Thomas after Willow's father. The birth was shorter and easier than James's had been, and Nathan was less panicked this time, though no less devoted. Thomas was smaller than James had been, but just as healthy, with a head of light brown hair and eyes that would eventually turn green like his mother's. James, now almost 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby brother. He would pat Thomas's head gently and bring him toys, trying to share in his own toddler way. Watching the two of them together, Willow felt her heart might burst with love. "Our family is growing," Nathan said one evening, holding Thomas while James dozed against his other side. "It is, and I could not be happier about it. Me neither. Though I may need to add on to the cabin soon if we keep going at this rate." Willow laughed. "One more, I think." "Then I will be satisfied. One more. So you are already planning baby number 3, not immediately." "But yes, someday I want a daughter, Nathan. A little girl with dark hair like you." Nathan's expression softened. "A daughter would be wonderful. Though I would not complain if we had another son, or 2. As it turned out, Willow got her wish sooner than expected. Less than a year later, she found herself pregnant for a 3rd time. This pregnancy was the most difficult of the 3, leaving her tired and nauseous for months. But Nathan was patient and supportive, taking on more of her workload and caring for James and Thomas when she needed to rest. Their daughter was born in March of 1879, a tiny, perfect little girl with a lusty cry and her father's dark hair. They named her Sarah after Nathan's mother, and from the moment she was born, Nathan was completely besotted. "She is so small," he marveled, cradling the baby with infinite gentleness. "So delicate. She is a stone," Willow said with a tired smile. "I suspect she will be tougher than she looks." And indeed, Sarah proved to be a strong, determined child from the start. She nursed eagerly, grew quickly, and by the time she was a few months old, had both her brothers wrapped around her tiny finger. The cabin that had once felt too large for one lonely man was now filled to bursting with life and love. Nathan expanded it the following summer, adding 2 more rooms so the children would have space to grow. The ranch continued to prosper, their herd growing larger each year, their reputation for quality cattle spreading throughout the territory. Years passed in a blur of activity and happiness. The children grew like weeds, James serious and responsible like his father, Thomas adventurous and mischievous, Sarah clever and determined. They learned to ride almost before they could walk, learned to work alongside their parents, learned what it meant to be part of a family. On a warm summer evening in 1885, as the sun set over the mountains turning the sky shades of pink and orange, the entire family gathered on the porch of their now substantial home. James, at 10 years old, was reading to his younger siblings from a book about the Wild West. Thomas, 9, was supposedly listening but kept getting distracted by a lizard he had caught. Sarah, 6, sat on her father's lap, playing with his pocket watch. Willow sat beside Nathan, her hand in his, watching their children with contentment. They had added a 4th child to their family 2 years earlier, a son named Henry who was currently sleeping inside. Their family was complete now, loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. "You ever think about that day?" Nathan asked quietly, "when I found you in those woods?" Willow leaned her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago, like it happened to a different person." "In a way, I suppose it did. We are both different people now than we were then. Better people, I think. Definitely better. Nathan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. I meant what I said that day, you know, that you would be safe with me forever. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret trusting me. I know. And I have never regretted it, not for a single moment. You saved my life, Nathan. You and this place and this family we have built together. We saved each other, Nathan corrected. Before you, I was just going through the motions, not really living. You taught me how to live again, how to love again. You gave me everything I ever wanted and more than I ever dreamed possible. James looked up from his book. Are you two being mushy again? Sarah giggled. They are always mushy. Thomas made a face. It is gross. You will understand someday, Nathan told them with a grin. When you are older and find someone who makes you as happy as your mother makes me. Never, Thomas declared. I am never getting married. That is what I said too, Nathan replied. And look how that turned out. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky and the children continued their good-natured bickering, Willow reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The fear and pain of those days running through the forest felt distant now, almost unreal. But she never forgot them, never forgot how close she had come to losing everything. She thought about the girl she had been, frightened and alone, hiding in a ravine with no hope for the future. She thought about Nathan, the lonely rancher who could have simply walked past her hiding spot but had instead stopped, had reached out his hand and offered her safety. That single act of kindness had changed both their lives irrevocably. It had given her a home, a family, a future. It had given him the same. They had healed each other's wounded hearts, had built something beautiful from the broken pieces of their pasts. Mama, you are thinking too much again, Sarah said, tugging on Willow's sleeve. Papa says you do that sometimes. Willow smiled and pulled her daughter close. I am just thinking about how lucky I am to have all of you. We are lucky too, James said seriously. Teacher says not everyone has a family like ours. Your teacher is right, Nathan said. We are very lucky. And we should never take it for granted. As the night deepened and the air grew cooler, they moved inside to the warmth of the cabin. Nathan built up the fire while Willow got the children ready for bed. It was a familiar routine, comfortable and precious. Later, after all 4 children were finally asleep and the cabin was quiet, Nathan and Willow sat together by the fire. Willow was mending one of Thomas's shirts, torn in some adventure she probably did not want to know about. Nathan was working on a piece of leather, making a new bridle for one of the horses. I have been thinking about something, Willow said, breaking the comfortable silence. What is that? About writing everything down. Our story, I mean, how we met, how we built this life together. For the children, so they know their history. Nathan set down his work and looked at her. That is a wonderful idea, you should do it. I was thinking we could do it together. Take turns writing sections, tell it from both our perspectives. I like that. Though I have to warn you, my writing is not nearly as good as yours. That is all right. It is the story that matters, not the grammar. Willow tied off her thread and set down the shirt. I want them to know that even when things seem impossible, even when you are at your lowest point, good things can still happen. That kindness exists in the world, and love can heal even the deepest wounds. Nathan moved to sit beside her on the settee, pulling her close. They are lucky kids, having you as their mother, having this family. I am the lucky one. You could have walked past me that morning. You could have decided I was not your problem, but you did not. You stopped and you helped me and you gave me everything I thought I had lost forever. You are safe with me forever, Nathan said, echoing the words he had spoken so many years ago. That is still true, and it always will be. Willow turned in his arms and kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into it. After all these years, his kisses still made her heart race, still made her feel cherished and desired and deeply loved. "Forever," she whispered against his lips. "I like the sound of that." The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. The ranch expanded further, becoming one of the most successful in the territory. James grew into a fine young man, serious and hardworking, taking on more responsibility around the ranch. Thomas remained adventurous, always exploring the mountains and forests around their home. Sarah developed a passion for horses, spending every free moment in the stables. Henry, the youngest, showed an early aptitude for reading and learning, often found with his nose buried in a book. Nathan and Willow grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They faced hardships, as all families do. Harsh winters that killed part of their herd, years when the market for cattle dropped, illnesses and injuries that tested their strength. But they faced everything together, their partnership unshakable. In the summer of 1895, James got married to a lovely young woman from town named Elizabeth. The wedding was held at the ranch, with half of Shoshone City in attendance. As Willow watched her eldest son exchange vows with his bride, she felt Nathan's hand slip into hers and squeeze gently. "Hard to believe he is all grown up," Nathan murmured. "I know. Seems like just yesterday he was taking his first steps between us on the porch. We did all right with him, I think. With all of them." Willow looked around at their assembled family. Thomas, now 21, standing tall and proud as his brother's best man. Sarah, 18, beautiful in a new dress, already attracting the attention of several young men. Henry, 16, trying to look mature and serious for the occasion. "Yes," she agreed softly, "we did very well indeed." That night, after all the guests had left and the younger children were in bed, Nathan and Willow took a walk through the ranch. They walked past the expanded barn, past the cattle grazing in the moonlight, past the garden that Willow had lovingly tended for 20 years. "Do you ever miss Kentucky?" Nathan asked as they paused by the fence overlooking the valley below. Willow considered the question. "Sometimes I miss certain things. The smell of tobacco plants in the summer, the way the fireflies would light up the fields at night. But this is home now. This has been home for so long that Kentucky feels like a dream I once had." "We have built a good life here," Nathan said, his arm around her waist. "We have built an extraordinary life. Against all odds, despite everything that tried to stop us, we built something beautiful and lasting." Nathan turned to face her, his hands cupping her face the way he had done countless times over the years. In the moonlight, Willow could see the silver in his hair, the lines that time and weather had carved into his face. But his eyes were the same as they had been that first morning, warm and kind and full of love. "I love you, Willow Stone," he said. "I have loved you from the moment I saw you in that ravine, and I will love you until my last breath and beyond. I love you too, Nathan Stone. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me the family and home I always dreamed of but never thought I would have." They stood there in the moonlight, holding each other, surrounded by the life they had built together. The ranch spread out around them, testament to their hard work and dedication. Inside the house, their children slept safely, loved and protected. It was everything Willow had ever wanted, more than she had ever dared to hope for during those dark days in the forest. As they walked back to the house, hand in hand, Willow thought about destiny and fate. She thought about how one moment, one act of kindness from a lonely rancher had changed the entire course of her life. She thought about the baby she had been carrying that day, now a grown man with a wife of his own. She thought about the 3 other children who had followed, each one a blessing she treasured. Most of all, she thought about the man beside her, the one who had seen her at her lowest point and offered her forever. The one who had kept that promise every single day for the past 20 years. The one who had shown her that love was not about pretty words and empty promises, but about showing up day after day, working side by side, choosing each other again and again. Years later, when their children had children of their own, when the ranch had been passed down to the next generation, Willow would sit on that same porch and tell her grandchildren the story of how she met their grandfather. She would tell them about running through the forest, about hiding in a ravine, about a kind stranger who had said those magical words, "You are safe with me forever." And she would smile, seeing the wonder in their young faces, knowing that the story did not end there. The story continued in them, in the family that had grown from that single moment of compassion, in the legacy of love and hard work and dedication that Nathan and Willow had built together. On a crisp autumn evening in 1910, as the leaves turned gold on the aspens and the first snow dusted the mountain peaks, Nathan and Willow sat on their porch for what would be one of the last times. They were both in their 70s now, their bodies showing the wear of hard years of ranch work, but their minds were still sharp and their love for each other still strong. Their children and grandchildren had gathered for Sunday supper, as they did most weeks. The house was full of noise and laughter, 3 generations of Stones sharing a meal and making memories. James and Elizabeth had 3 children now, all grown. Thomas had married late but happily, with twin girls who were the delight of everyone who met them. Sarah had married a rancher from a neighboring property, combining the 2 ranches into an even larger operation. Henry had become a teacher, but still lived nearby, visiting often with his wife and young son. As the sun set and the family began to depart, heading to their own homes scattered across the valley, Willow leaned against Nathan's shoulder with a contented sigh. "Tired?" Nathan asked, his arm coming around her automatically. "A little, but happy, so very happy." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. After so many years together, they did not always need words. Sometimes the silence said everything that needed to be said. "Nathan," Willow said eventually. "Yes, love. Do you remember what you said to me that first morning, when you found me in the ravine?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, thinking back. "I said a lot of things that morning. You said I was safe with you forever. Do you remember?" "Of course I remember. I meant every word." Willow turned to look at him, her eyes shining with tears. "You kept that promise. Every single day for 35 years, you kept that promise. You made me feel safe and loved and cherished. You gave me a life beyond anything I ever imagined possible." Nathan's own eyes were damp as he pulled her close. "And you gave me the same. You took a lonely, broken man and taught him how to live again, how to love again. You filled this house with laughter and love. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to wake up every morning with joy in my heart." "We saved each other," Willow whispered. "We did. And I would do it all again, exactly the same, just to end up right here with you." They held each other as the night deepened. 2 souls who had found each other against all odds, who had built a love that had weathered every storm and emerged stronger for it. The ranch that had once been home to one lonely man was now the heart of a thriving family, a legacy of love that would continue for generations. When the grandchildren asked, as they always did, for the story of how Grandma and Grandpa met, Willow would tell them the truth. She would tell them about the darkest time in her life, when she was frightened and alone. She would tell them about the kind rancher who had offered her hope when she had none left. She would tell them about love that grew slowly, steadily, from friendship and respect into something deep and unshakable. And she would tell them the most important part: that kindness matters, that one person reaching out a helping hand can change a life, that love is not about perfection, but about choosing each other every day, in good times and bad. Nathan Stone had given Willow Anderson a future when she had none. She had given him the family he had always wanted but never dared hope for. Together, they had built something that would last long after they were gone, a testament to the power of compassion, love, and the human spirit's ability to heal and grow. As they sat on that porch in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the land they had worked together for so many years, they knew that whatever time they had left, they would face it as they had faced everything, together. Forever, just as Nathan had promised on that long-ago morning when he found a frightened girl hiding in the woods and offered her the world. Their story was one of survival and hope, of second chances and new beginnings. It was a story of love in its truest form, built not on passion alone but on mutual respect, shared hardship, and unwavering commitment. It was a story that would be told and retold by their descendants for generations, a reminder that even in the darkest times, even when all seems lost, hope and love can still be found. And that, Willow thought as she sat in her husband's arms watching the stars emerge overhead, was the greatest legacy they could leave behind. Not the ranch, not the land, not the material things they had accumulated over the years, but the proof that love could conquer fear, that kindness could change lives, that two broken people could come together and create something whole and beautiful and lasting. The pregnant girl who had hidden in the woods was long gone, replaced by a strong woman who had raised 4 children and helped build a successful ranch. The lonely rancher had disappeared too, transformed into a loving husband, devoted father, and cherished grandfather. But the moment they met, that morning in the ravine when Nathan had looked at Willow and promised her safety forever, that moment was eternal. It lived on in every stone who came after them, in every story told around the dinner table, in every act of kindness passed from generation to generation. As the moon rose high over Montana, and a gentle breeze whispered through the pines, Nathan and Willow Stone sat together on their porch, still in love after all these years. Proof that the best stories are the ones where love wins, where kindness triumphs, where two souls find each other and decide to walk through life hand in hand, forever.